All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Transcend with M. And with us today is Marsha. Marsha is an amazing individual. She actually has a podcast herself and she travels around the country doing a thing or two that you might need to pay attention and learn from. So, Marsha, thank you for being here in the show and the podcast. And I cannot wait to hear your story. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Monica. Thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this for, a couple of days now. So I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
I am excited to have you, and I just can't wait to hear the nitty gritty of your story. So I'm just going to ask straight to the point. Who's Marsha? What brought you here? And what is that story that I am so intriguing to learn?
Yeah. So, Marcia, I am a creative. I'm a visionary. I'm an empath. I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. Like you said, I'm a traveler. I've been to 19 countries and counting. I've made short films. I've been to med school, later to nursing school. I've been a teacher. I've learned to code. I've been a legal assistant. I've done so many things in my career as an adult. And even though I've done so many things and enjoyed the journey of doing those things, nothing really seemed to fit. And so when I went into nursing school about 11 years ago, I met a colleague, a nursing student, fellow nursing student, now a friend, who was starting a business. And I decided to follow along with him and tag along just to learn because this was so intriguing to me. And by following him, I realized this is what I wanted to do. After all of the things that I've done in my life, I was like, this is what I was searching for. This is why I changed so many jobs and did so many things. I was seeking out something that fit for me. And helping him in the background and doing things like helping him film his marketing videos in my apartment and helping him like pass out his product. I realized that entrepreneurship was something that I became infatuated with. Just learning and producing something that was brand new and putting it out there in the world and having people really enjoy what you have to offer, that was really intriguing to me. So I became like a blogger while I was after I finished nursing school. I became a podcaster. I was coaching nurses in self-care, nursing and career advancement. I was doing those kind of things and I was traveling at the same time. So I was blogging about nursing and traveling at the same time. And so I started that coaching practice and I didn't look back. I really loved entrepreneurship. I still am a nurse as well. And that's been my journey to this day. So I actually shut down my coaching business just a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago. And I announced that to my email list. Yeah, I shut down my coaching business, coaching nurses, and I decided to work on two projects that really was beginning to bring some fulfillment. So I worked with a nursing colleague of mine, and we built out her idea, which was Black Nurses Week. And then after Black Nurses Week, I discovered what my true love was. After creating that event and working in events in the past at UCLA, I used to be an event planner. I decided to open my own second business as a event planning strategist. So that's where I am right now in entrepreneurship.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And I love the journey that I've taken. I love that I've done so many things in my life that's made my life colorful and my journey colorful. And now I'm on this new journey and running two businesses at the same time. And I'm really thrilled about it. It's really exciting.
That it sounds really exciting. And
Yeah.
you know what is more exciting? The smile on your face.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it
Thank you.
because you can truly tell that you are really happy doing what you are doing. So I am really curious to
Yes.
learn and understand, because a lot of people also experience similar journeys as yours, where like they went to school for something, now they don't like it, now they're trying to find that purpose. So, can you talk to us a little bit about that journey of discovery and like what are the things that someone should focus on in order to actually find the thing, right? Like, what are some of those lessons learned, I guess, through that journey?
So, the lesson that I can talk about today on my 47-year-old journey, the lesson for me is sometimes, and the lesson is for the audience listening in as well. Sometimes the journey takes a while. It took me a long time to figure it out, whatever that it is for you. It may take you a while, and you just have to be patient with yourself. You have to give yourself grace. And you also just have to continue doing what it is that you're doing in the moment so you can get to that next level or that next part of your journey. Because where you are right now, I truly believe that's where you're meant to be. And everything that you go through, whether it's good or bad, it's a lesson learned. So, with that, I just have to say sometimes the journey does take a long time before you get there. Some people are lucky. Some people figure it out, you know, when they're 5 years old and they see an astronaut on television, and all of a sudden they're an engineer at NASA. And then other people like me, we figure it out, when we're 47 and we are launching a new business after really discovering, hey, this is what I'm really good at. And I absolutely love it. So take your time, be graceful with yourself, and trust the process of the journey, because on the other side is where you'll get most joy.
I love it. I love it. And I think we fail a ton about giving ourselves permission to go through that journey because there is so many pressures, right? From everywhere, from family, from friends, from society, from what you are supposed to be doing, right? Like we lived under these stethoscope all or not stethoscope on these like
Microscope.
microscope.
Yeah.
Telescope is the one for the heart. This is you're a nurse. I'm tired. I am tired right now. You're
We've had a busy day.
yeah, it's 9:16 at night.
Yeah.
We're recording this very late at night.
Right.
Anyways, um, but you're always under the pressure of the public, and then that pressure becomes internal pressure, which sometimes even prevents you from thinking clearly and actually take the time to take action towards a plan, right? Because you are supposed to be at 25 somewhere, at 27 somewhere, at 30. You're supposed to own your house, get married, have kids. Like it's just all these things that are pressured from society. And we live in this timeline that
Yeah.
it's really not a fit for everybody.
You know what, Monica? I have to go back to when you started about, this pressure of you're supposed to do something when
Yeah.
you're, young. You grow up with this idea, and your family has this idea of what you're going to do
Mhm.
or be when you grow up. And I think about this, often where, I grew up in a household where we didn't have, money. We were poor. So we didn't have money. And when you don't have money, there are two like career paths that you think about. Most of the time, it's either you're going to be a doctor or you're going to be a lawyer. And that's what you're used to seeing on television as a young child. If you're in my situation as a young child and, living with not that many means. And I stuck with that. So I went to med school. I did the typical route. I went into college, applied to med schools, got 7, interviews. But when I got my interview that I wanted, I went ahead and started med school. And you know what happened? In my second year, I got very depressed.
Mm.
very, very depressed. I could barely go to class. I didn't go to class a lot. I felt very out of place. I was in a class of about 100. I can't remember if it was 150 or 175 of us, but I just felt very out of place. There were two of us in our med school class that had to work because we didn't have, the means to really cover a lot of things, where a lot of the students there, their parents had the money to pay for them, or they had other resources. So there were two of us in the class who had to work. And guess what? Both of us didn't finish. Out
Mm.
of all of our class, both of us did not finish at the time. I don't know if that other classmate did, but I know that, you know, now, like, and I said, that's part of the journey. Um, I had that pressure of, okay, this is what I can do. This is what I should be, because that's how I'm going to make money and get out of the situation that I'm in. And I think so often, we have a disservice to ourselves. And, if we're older adults and we're teaching our kids, I'm not a parent, but just be open to the possibility that they may have other ideas. I
Mm.
remember growing up begging my mom to go to take dance lessons, ballet,
Yeah.
wanting to sell. I remember there were these things, these tissue flowers that we used to make in elementary school. And I told my mom, I remember one day, hey, I want to sell these with my friend. That was my entrepreneurial mind coming out, trying to come out, but it didn't seem like a realistic thing to do. So I was never able to do it.
Yeah.
In my family, it just was like, what? That doesn't make sense. These are little paper tissues. What are you going to do with that? But at that time, it was like, oh my goodness, I had, when I look back, I'm like, I had those ideas at first.
Mhm.
I had all of that, desire to want to be something and want to be different from the norm back then. And it took me, again, it took the journey of me, going through a lot of things before I got there. So,
Yeah. Yeah. No, I hear you. And it is just like you, like, I had to work through college. Like I never experienced college during the day. I don't know what that means. Like I had to work during the day. I had a full-time job, and then I will go to college at night, because my parents didn't have a uh, college fund for me. Like I didn't grow up like, I think my mom was a pharmacist, and at the time that I went to college, she was still making less than $6 an hour.
wow.
So who can survive on that? And
Right.
I think we grew up wanting to not just be different, but break that cycle of
Yeah.
um you kind of want to like take care of your family, right? you want
Yes.
to you want to get them out of that cycle, because you don't want to depend on them, but you also don't want to see them going through the same things over and
Right.
over, if you can provide to them. And then that makes us kind of like actually push our dreams down, so we just need to do
Yes.
what we need to do in order
Right.
to survive, right? So it's survival mode, right?
And to help our parents, survival and help our parents. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how most of us, I will say, grow up, right?
Yeah.
Like we come from humble families, and unfortunately, we had what we needed, not what we wanted, and we just grow up understanding that there is certain things that you have to sacrifice in order to get there, whatever that there is, right?
Yes.
So um
I can
sometimes,
completely relate to that story. Yeah. Sacrificing to get to
yeah,
a point where you can feel like, okay, I don't have to work as hard anymore. Yeah.
yeah. So talking about sacrifices, what are some of the sacrifices that you've gone through in order to get here, which is a very satisfying moment, but we all have those little things that we sacrifice in the journey. So what are some of those that we can learn from?
I have to say, number one is probably part of my being a highly sensitive person, and that's trying to be a people pleaser.
Mm.
Sacrificing myself, sacrificing my needs, and wanting to make people happy at all cost, no matter what it cost me and my, journey at all. So,
Yes.
um, I think the biggest sacrifice that I've made is neglecting the needs and desires that I had just to, of course, make it through the next moment, whether it's being, okay, I have to go get this job because I need to take care of myself, or I have to switch this career because this isn't working, because, I'm, not feeling right or, in this situation, but
Yeah.
just sacrificing taking care of myself. And
Mhm.
that is a big thing that I've sacrificed, because caring about other people, you're not just caring about other people. I find that I wasn't filling myself up with love or joy. And so that's one thing in my 40 something years
Yeah.
that I'm finally coming around to, and that's taking a lot of work, whether it's through counseling and reading lots of boundary books and
Yeah.
listening to podcasts like the stories that you tell on this podcast, which are wonderful stories, just everyday average people who
Mhm.
are talking about, where their journey brought them. So
Yeah.
I think it's important that um, we actually listen to that voice inside of us. Again, it may take us a while to actually really listen,
Yeah.
but I think it's an important thing that we must do. And if we want to be happy, if we want to start to actually realize some of the things that we have in terms of dreams for ourselves, that's one thing that we have to do.
Yeah. I've heard this a little bit through the past couple years, and I guess my question is, which is always a different answer every time I ask it. But when enough is enough, when you are a people pleaser, like, how do you say enough? Like, what was your aha moment
Yeah.
during your journey that made you say no, enough is enough?
And actually, it's happened for me rather recently.
Okay.
Um, you know, um, Putting boundaries on relationships
Mhm.
has been a very important enough for me.
Okay.
So that's I would have to say that's the biggest enough that I've had to deal with in the last couple of
Mhm.
months, is just saying to myself, Marcia, okay, stop being afraid of what you want, go out and get it, and stop living in fear. Even though you teach others how to do it, stop doing it yourself. And then put boundaries in place, whether it's work boundaries, whether it's people boundaries, whether it's family boundaries, put boundaries in place so that you can take care of yourself. And so I was literally getting sick, like I would say, for the past few months this summer. And, I was just getting physically, mentally sick and exhausted
Mhm.
from people pleasing. That's where it actually started for me. I started to hate waking up in the morning because now I can feel again. When you're
Mhm.
asleep, you don't feel.
Right.
Well, you're dreaming, but you may not
Plus,
be feeling it immediately,
plus
right?
sleeping is so good. I'm
Right.
just
Right. Sleeping is good. I love a good sleep. Sleeping is good. But yeah, when you're sleeping, for me, it was like I didn't feel anything when I'm really sleeping. But then when I woke up and I have a knot in my stomach first thing in the morning without even picking up my phone to see what the bad news on Twitter is for the day. If I
yeah.
have a knot in my stomach, if I'm feeling, icky about, my phone ringing or who's calling me on my phone, before I even get out of bed for the day, that's when I knew that was my enough moment. And it happened like literally this summer. So it just came about for me to say, Marcia, you've been living like this for a while. You've had no boundaries in place. You already know that you're a sensitive person. You take on the
Yeah.
world, you take on everybody else's stressors because you just, have this, gift, I guess, of empathy and being a sensitive person. So yeah, it happened for me just rather recently, and that was my enough. And I say within the last month is when I said, okay, Marsha, you're going to make a decision and this is what you're going to do. And you're going to stop living in fear. And I think that's when I reached out to you. You were the first podcaster I reached out to, start talking about my new business. You were the very first one I reached out to.
Oh,
I heard the stories on your podcast and I said, this is a good place to start. Let me just
that's
share.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I
Yeah.
feel so privileged.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica. Well, thank you for having the platform for women to just talk about their stories. So I
Yeah,
really appreciate it.
no problem. But I'm very curious to hear.
Hmm.
So, because this is a topic that intrigues me a little bit. Like, as you continue to deal, because it's a work in
Hmm.
progress. It's not something that you flip the switch right overnight. Um, did you ever feel that you were allowing others to have the business and the life they wanted to build, and you were building that for them, but you yourself weren't able to have it?
Yes.
Is that how it
That's an
felt?
easy yes. Yes. And
Okay.
I was coaching nurses how to do it.
Okay.
And I've done it in the past. I've started my own business. I started my own boutique travel
Right.
company where I toured people around Greece and Turkey. And, I started blogging and I earned money from my blog, doing different courses and things like that. And I was coaching nurses. So I was making an income from that.
Yeah.
But I was discovering at the time, and up until now, that, hey, this isn't really the business I want to do.
Mm.
And so I was coaching other nurses how to do it. Um, but it wasn't what I knew I needed. There was still something missing. There was still a missing piece, and it didn't even come together. To be honest, Monica, I used to be a meeting planner at UCLA where I hosted small scale events and I hosted large scale events with hundreds and up to 1,000 people. Was one of my biggest events with dozens of speakers and managing all of that, contracts and hotels and food and beverage, and I used to do that years ago, and a friend and a colleague, a nursing colleague, came to me. We met during the height of COVID because I'm a nurse and we did a travel assignment together. So we met during the height of COVID, in the middle of COVID, in the summer of 2020. And the very next year is when she told me her idea that she had been having for a couple of years, and and she's my business partner now, but the idea of a business came from a traumatic experience that she herself had experienced in the workplace. She's an African American woman, and she had some, issues with her management.
Yeah.
Talking about her and her hair, and or how unprofessional basically she was. I mean, that's the bottom
Mhm.
line of what they were trying to get at. And so she wanted to form this community. She thought to herself, wouldn't it be great to have a community where, I people can like us can come together and uplift each other, encourage each other, inspire each other, teach each other. And she had that idea. And so she had, that brewing in her head for a while. And then she came to me, 4 or 5 years later, and we met, and she told me, and I said, okay, let's do it. And so it was literally that day. I was thinking, okay, let's do hotels, because this was my what I did in the past. I was like, all of a sudden it's coming back
Yeah.
to me, and I've hosted my own, online summits with, influencers. I've hosted my own
Mhm.
retreats. I've hosted my own mini events, as
Yeah.
well as the big events for the big, schools and things like that. And
Yeah.
I was on board, and I discovered, and we had our first live event this summer. It was a 3-day live event here in Washington, D.C. at the historic Mayflower Hotel. It was
Oh,
Black Nurses
very,
Week. Yeah, called
very
Black Nurses Week.
nice.
Yeah, Black Nurses Week. And it's becoming a movement, and we're really excited about it. But that's where I found it. After
Mm.
the event, I was like, oh my God, I love this. I did this before and I loved it before, and I
Yeah.
sort of forgot it. My brain unlearned what was really fun and, good for me. And that's
Yeah.
why I said, you know what? I love event planning. Let me go ahead and launch my event planning business. And I've been working and, looking at my offers right now. And I just, hired a coach to help me go through that. And
Nice.
yeah, so that's what happened. And now I have, I'm announcing my event planning business on your podcast.
I love it. I love it. So, the other side of this story, it's also we need to bring awareness to, like, the differentiators when it comes to, race, color, because, like it or not, is a very still pronounced issue. And we experience it in my industry too. Like, I'm in insurance, and there is a lot of underrepresented minorities in our industry. And I feel the pain where, like, it's like pulling teeth, right? Like, how are we going to bring more awareness, not just for people to, join the industries more, like nursing or insurance or whatever, but how actually do we make these industries more inclusive, right? So can you tell me a little bit about how this movement that you are creating at this event, long, week long event that you're hosting, is bringing more awareness, not just to, the, African American community, but also the medical community, when it comes to, representing women of color, and everybody in between, because I feel like, doesn't matter if you're Black, Latino, or whatever, it is a minority being represented, which is really important to bring awareness to. So tell me more about the purpose of that.
Yeah, it's basically a story of we matter too. So the movement that we hope to continue to build and create is just so that Black nurses have a story.
Mhm.
They have, a seat at the table,
Yeah.
and our voices are being heard. And when we are able to have our voices heard, that means our community's voices are heard.
Yeah.
So it's that simple. Like, nurses, Black nurses matter.
Mhm.
Black nurses' voices matter. And I actually, it reminds me of the episode. I just listened to your recent episode where you and the guest, I can't remember who exactly it was at the moment, but you and your guest were talking
Tell me
about,
story. I'll tell you it is.
yeah. So you were talking about how Latinos are not really prone to get insurance,
Mhm.
because it's not something that they trust. Like going to the bank, like
Yeah.
your dad,
Yeah. Yeah.
kept the money at home and things like that.
Yeah.
And I feel like even in that, it's the same story. Like,
Yeah.
um, you know, Latinos in insurance matter. Like you want to grow the presence of Latinos in insurance, but you can only do that when people are a part of it. So if they
Right.
don't feel a part of it and they don't know the story and they don't know the reason why they're supposed to be buying or purchasing this product,
Yeah.
of course they can't be a part of it. So it's basically about showing them, hey, I'm Latina, I'm African American, I can present myself
Mhm.
in this world, in this realm, and show you that, hey, this is an important topic, or this is an important piece of information that you should know, and therefore you must be a part of it too. So
Mhm.
it just comes down to that one simple story that whatever group it is, whether it's Latinos, whether it's African Americans, whether it's the LGBT community, people
Yeah.
matter. And identity does have a part in it too. So our
Mhm.
identities matter, people matter, and it's just a platform for us to raise the voice of our Black community and Black nurses in the community who support and represent those communities.
And I love it because it's so important. I mean, imagine in 10 years what that will look like,
Yeah.
and maybe after, even with the part, like, it's the important thing is just to get it started, to be consistent, to get it done,
Yeah.
regardless if it's 10 people, 50 people, 1,000 people, 10,000 people. One person can make a difference.
Yes.
Like I always, and I know a lot of people have heard this because I've said it many times on this podcast, but you never know who's watching. You never know who's listening. And regardless of you knowing it or not, you are driving change every single day with your actions. Like I don't know who listens to the podcast. Like I don't know who is, sharing or not sharing or following or
You
not
didn't
following.
me
You know,
until I reached out to you and said, "Hey, I've heard."
like,
Yeah.
but like I know in my mind, in my
Mhm.
heart, that if I do this one thing, once a day, once a week, once a month, whatever timeline I put myself, I am making a difference to someone. And that's all you need, right? So
Yeah.
I think all of us, if anything they can learn from you, anything they can learn from me, anything they can learn from anyone that actually does any type of community work or that has a purpose of doing something amazing like that, bigger or at smaller scale, is that we all have the power to make change and to drive change. So I really appreciate you sharing, that part of your story and what
Yeah.
you're doing, because it is really important. We are not presidents of a country, or we
Mhm.
might not have the power to change the world entirely, but you can change your surroundings. You can change, an atmosphere, an environment for the people around you. And, those are the people that you need to take care of, because at the end of the day, you are in that environment too.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing that.
Thank you,
um,
Monica.
I think it's really remarkable, and it's not easy. I put events together. It is not easy.
It's
I
not.
sometimes I'm like, why did I do this? Why did I agree to do this? Especially the
Yeah.
stage four, when you have like three cancellations and you don't know what to do.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
love those
yeah,
days. Love
yeah.
those
That's
days.
not fun. That's not fun.
Oh, but for women listening today, what is one message of empowerment, or a message of resiliency that you would like to give them today?
Yes. So, something I always have taught in coaching, and something that I've always heard before I started teaching it, was to, or is to, start before you're ready. It's
Hmm.
my favorite quote of all times. Now, it can relate to business, it can relate to life, it can relate to jobs, it can relate to relationships, it can relate to whatever. But start before you're ready, because, done is better than perfect.
Mhm.
And I've done a lot of done over the years, and,
Yeah.
not perfect. So you want to start before you're ready, because if you wait for, say, for instance, if you are in business, if you wait for, that if you're a podcaster or a blogger, if you wait for that blog piece to be perfect, you're never going to put it out.
Mhm.
Put it out at 80% ready. And then once you know it's out, guess what you're going to do? You're going to get it done. You're going to go back and say, "Oh my God, now people see it. Let me go ahead and do it." And that's how
Edit,
that's
edit,
how I,
1 a.m.
right.
edit. I can't
Exactly.
sleep. I don't know how many
Exactly.
people's gonna look at this tomorrow morning.
And you know what, Monica? That was my philosophy when I used to blog. I said, "Okay, I'm tired. I don't want to put this out. It looks like crap, but you know what? It's 80% ready. Let me just put it out." And then I announce it in my email list. And guess what? Okay, now I know people are going to be looking at it. Let me go back and read it. It's already out there. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, done is better than perfect. Start before you're ready. That's my
yeah.
lesson to anybody.
I so when it's so funny you say that. So my I have a newsletter, and it
Hmm.
has evolved with time, and
Uh
it
huh.
started so like poor. Like it was just like a bad job. But I was like, if I don't do it, I will never do it, and
Yeah.
then I will never have the feedback. So
Right.
I have a very loyal friend. Her
Hmm.
name is Amy Marsha Battee. She
Hmm.
used to be a professor at one of the universities here, and she has an amazing coaching company for young young professionals,
Hmm.
and she helps them, like, learn skills and stuff to then go into the workforce. Um, and let me tell you, if I send that newsletter, and I don't get an email back from her saying, Monica, I recommend this or that, I'm like sending an email back saying, where's my email?
Yeah. That sounds like my mom, Monica. My mom would be the first person emailing you. You know, you forgot a period.
Yeah, yeah. And, I really appreciate that
Yeah.
so much because she cares. I
Yeah.
know she cares from the
Exactly.
bottom of the heart. So,
Yeah.
like, if you never put it out there and
Yeah.
you received positive reinforcement or criticism, or you're not holding yourself accountable to like actually get better, then it will never be better.
Yes.
You will never get to excellence, right? And we're always striving to get better and
Yeah.
excel day over day. So I really appreciate that because I think it's so true. Just better done, better
Yeah.
done, and just challenge yourself, and then just be like, panic attack, go back,
Right.
fix whatever you need to fix, and just move on, right? There is always going to be someone watching over you and providing you good feedback that can help you succeed in the future. So Marsha,
Yeah.
I really 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 enjoyed this conversation so
I
much,
did too. Thank you so much.
getting to know you a little bit better. But we never mentioned the name of your podcast, so you got to tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, Monica, that was part of the podcast. I actually shut down with my coaching business. So I
All
just,
right.
yeah, and you wouldn't have
Well,
known because, this
still,
is the first time I'm mentioning.
people
Yes.
can still listen to the episodes that
Yes. It's called the Marsha podcast.
Oh, that's so cool.
So yeah, there are some episodes still up. You can find it on Apple iTunes. So yeah, I just decided with my coaching business about 2 weeks ago, hey, this is not where I want to go anymore. I'm just going to move in a
Yeah.
different direction. And now I'm going to focus on event planning and event strategy, retreat planning and retreat strategy. So yeah.
Perfect. Well, I know that even though you don't have that podcast anymore, you will come up with a new trend, and
Yes.
it will kick off in the next few months once your event planning business is up and running and right starting, because I know it is going to be amazing. And you can see it on your smile. You
Yeah.
are going to succeed and you are going to go to the stars. I
Thank
know
you.
it. I know it's going to happen. So where can people find you? What are your handles? Like, tell us all about it.
Yeah. So the main place that people can find me is eventsecretsblueprint.com. That's my website. And I actually have a freebie offer by the time this goes live. There'll be your ultimate event planning checklist. And also I have a workshop coming up. That's how to launch a live event, transformational event if you're interested. So that's coming up at the end of November. So eventsecretsblueprint.com, and that's where I'll be.
Amazing. Once again, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. And I cannot wait to talk to you again in 6
Yes.
months, where we are going to be telling the story on how this business is going.
I can't wait.
The ups and downs, the everything in between. So thank you
Yes.
so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Monica. This was so much fun.